The ACLU has filed a lawsuit against the city of DC, the chief of police there, and some of the specific police officers, alleging that cops used rape as a punishment following a Inauguration Day mass arrest. Now here you can see a picture of the protest that was happening with these black-clad marchers who began smashing windows in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day. Now, the Metropolitan Police Department opted to kettle everyone, which basically means to corral everyone on the streets nearby, this anarchist-driven property destruction. Now, the mass roundup swept the Antifa, or the anti-fascist rowdy types, together with many peaceful protesters, journalists, and volunteer legal observers who turn out in these bright green hats to help uphold First Amendment rights at such events in the Capitol. Now, the ACLU is already questioning the constitutionality of this sort of mass roundup, sort of guilty by association. But further than that, independent photojournalist Shay Horse, volunteer legal observer Judah Ariel, and peaceful protesters Elizabeth Legesse and Milo Gonzalez suggest that the MPD sought physical and emotional retribution on the hundreds of people kettled. So it was about 200 people. Now, an officer allegedly ordered Horse, fellow plaintiff Milo Gonzalez, and 3 others to take their pants off before grabbing their testicles and then inserting a finger into their anuses, while other officers laughed. Apparently there were some other details that they didn't change gloves between this, a lot of allegations that are very disturbing. Now, Horse said that I felt like they were using molestation and rape as punishment. They use those tactics to inflict pain and misery on people who are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Now, the MPD is defending its reputation and maintaining that all of their arrests were proper. They are also saying that all of the allegations into misconduct will be fully investigated. But obviously, if this did happen, this is just this horrible abuse of power in this situation.
So, first, let me just be a little bit clear about kettling. So, if you were among the many protesters in the Trump inauguration, or let's say you're a Tea Party protester against Obamacare, and if somebody did something stupid and they threw something, they broke something, kettling is they come and they just hold everyone in that area. They don't go, okay, that's the guy who did it, or there's the 3 guys right there. That requires, and I know it's a chaotic scene, and I'm not totally unsympathetic to the overall situation of the cops. I'm not sympathetic at all to what the cops are alleged to have done. But okay, they kettled them, and then they arrested 200 of them, including these guys who were photojournalists, et cetera, and legal advisors. And by the way, just so you're absolutely clear, guys like Horse were released and never charged because they were innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. But they happen to be, it's not guilt by association actually, because they're not associated at all to the guy who threw the rocks or whatever they did to break the windows. It's guilt by location. They just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and next thing you know, their pants are down and somebody's touching their testicles and putting a finger in their anus. So that's pretty bad. Most people would not be in favor of that.
Yeah, so one of the peaceful protesters, Elizabeth Legesse, is actually still facing felony charges. They basically charged all 200 of these people that they kettled with these felony charges. And so she's still facing those and trying to get out of the, obviously with the help of the ACLU. And she says that she was kettled in this situation. They said that she said that they handcuffed her with zip ties so tightly that she was like bleeding and was cutting her wrist. So there were already so many aspects of this that were horrendous and wrong, and then to add insult to injury, quite literally, then these other allegations of molestation are added onto it. So it's pretty terrifying what cops will do when they think that they can get away with something.
I'd like to see how they justified the probing. Like, well, we know the people who did it had stuff in their butts, so we decided to, like, that's the only explanation is, well, we had to look in there to make sure that you weren't the people who did it. And then kettling, the idea, I mean, kettling is a really dangerous tactic. Because like you hear during these times of heightened violence or chaos in a situation, you want to de-escalate things and cool something down. And you will not, I mean, kettles don't cool things down. You put something in a kettle so you can heat it up and it can get more and more annoying till it screams at you. And that's ridiculous. And the guilt by, location, that is a deterrent against really all major protests. Because what happens in a major protest when you get enough people together is there will be jackasses who show up, and it just takes essentially one person to throw a bottle or go past a random barrier for the police to say, now we feel like we're in danger. And now we've kind of de facto turned this group of largely peaceful protesters into 200 arrests.
Yeah, and there's one other aspect to that. In this case, there's no evidence of this, but historically, there's also been agitators planted inside the crowds. Like in civil rights protests, it was a well-known tactic of the police to put an agitator inside the crowd who then breaks something in a nonviolent protest, which allows them to arrest all the nonviolent protesters and deter further protests, because if you come to a protester, we'll arrest you all based on someone that we planted in the crowd.
Yeah.
And again, just these are historic tactics used by the government and sometimes by right-wing people who want to infiltrate nonviolent protests. And then you'll see that the only person not arrested is the guy who threw the thing in the first place. So that's a whole nother angle to it. In this case, there isn't evidence of that.
Right.
The cops believe, and we have no evidence to the contrary, that it really were Antifa guys there who were breaking windows. Those are the guys that you want to target. And by the way, felony charges are really, really serious. And so if you broke a window or you destroyed property, that you should get felony charges. But for 200 people, all 200 were part of Antifa, or and my pronunciation of that is bordering on hilarious now. Anyway, or violent protesters, or you're like, I don't know who did it. So let's just charge 200 people in that location with felony charges? That seems like a bad idea. You just watched the video from the Young Turks. Did you know that there's a live 2-hour show every day, and that if you're a member of the Young Turks, you can get that on demand anytime you want without ads? Plus the post game just for members, plus Aggressive Progressives, plus Old School, plus so many other network shows. Go right now, tytnetwork.com/join.